Say, Frank, let's roll them. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Anatomy of an Entrepreneur. We are on location today at 401 Park Avenue South, the home of Simul Media. We're here for a couple of reasons today. Number one, we are going to do our show. We have a really cool guest on today. And also, the Binghamton Marketing Collective, part of the Binghamton Alumni Association, is having an event here. I have my friend Justin, who has helped me out with comments. Justin, what is the name of this event?
The event is the Dynamic Media Landscape, basically focused on video. Yeah,
it sounds like a really, really cool event, which is part of the reason why we decided to live stream this. So we have some really cool guests on for that. We have a little housekeeping to take care of. First of all, this show is brought to you by My Instant Office. If you need to work in a chair, a desk, a conference room, an office by the day, the week of the month, come on in, sit down, and get to work. What we say is, add yourself. And by the Huntington Chamber of Commerce. My friend Joe Lavolsi is here, our favorite cinematographer. Joe, did you know that the Huntington Chamber of Commerce is the largest chamber of commerce on Long Island?
I did know that.
You did? How did you know that?
I belong to the Huntington Chamber.
Oh, look at you. And the Associate Director of the Huntington Chamber of Commerce, Courtney Bino, said to me once, here's what I'd like you to tell us, everybody, about the chamber. It's the best darn chamber in the world. Well, what else can you say? Yeah, I know you do. I know you say that. And today we have a really, really awesome show. Now, the point of this show is to inspire anyone that with the right tools, the right guidance, and the right work, that virtually anyone can be a successful entrepreneur. And every week we bring on a different, what I call an entrepreneur, because that has a lot of different terms. Someone who has risen to the challenges, has persevered, and has become a success in their own right. Today we have on a very special guest. We have on the president of Binghamton University, Harvey Stenger. Harvey, welcome to the show.
Hello, Cliff. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I am so glad you're here. You know, we've met a few times before, and one of the things that I noticed about you is because, you know what, someone of your stature who has accomplished so much, it could sometimes be a little intimidating to speak to someone like you, but you are so down to earth. You're such like a regular guy. You're just very easy to have a conversation with, and I just think that is so awesome. And my guess is that you're like that with everybody, which is why you're so well liked. So Harvey, do me a favor. I have research that I've done on you right here. The list goes on and on and on what you have accomplished. I mean, it's scary. Do me a favor and give us just like a 1-minute overview of Harvey Stenger.
Well, I grew up in a very small town in upstate New York, and now I am back in upstate New York, having been gone for more than 30 years in Binghamton. And I was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I was in Boston for quite a while. And what's exciting about being back in central New York, upstate New York, is that I get to impact the community very close to the community that I grew up in. And as many people know, upstate New York has had such a devastating impact of the loss of manufacturing jobs to overseas production, and now we're trying to regrow or rebirth and recreate ourselves around higher technologies, biomedical engineering, biomedical sciences, information technology, and it's a struggle, but it's been very worthwhile to try to do that. In between growing up in upstate New York and coming back as president in upstate New York, I served as a faculty member and dean of engineering at Lehigh University for a total of 23 years of all the different things I did at Lehigh. I did my undergraduate work at Cornell, my graduate work at MIT, Best 5 years of my life, 4.5 years of my life was my PhD program at MIT, where I was starting a research program in the kind of the height of the oil crisis in the late 70s, and was able to work in some areas that really could address the future issues of energy security for our country, and safe, clean energy security for our country. That was probably the most exciting part of my career, because I was an experimentalist. I loved working in the laboratory. I loved taking data. And then I meandered away from science and engineering and teaching and became an administrator in higher education, which I find equally as challenging, but sometimes not as fun, I have to admit. Taking data and writing papers was a lot more fun than the politics and the problems that you have as a university administrator. Although it's part of the job, you have to take that, the good with the bad, when you get to that point in your career.
I really
that was
want to
more
get
than
into.
a minute, Cliff.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I really want to get
So
into
that was
all
more
of
than
that.
that was more than a minute, Cliff. I'm sorry about that.
Harvey, can you get the hook, guys? I really want to get into all that because you said so many amazing things that I really want to unpack. But let's go back a little bit. What were you like as a kid?
Very competitive. Loved sports. Probably played something every day if it wasn't raining out, and then if it was raining, ping pong in the basement with friends. But I had to be playing a game, a sport, every day in order to feel like I had a successful day, and just loved that, and grew up with some great kids on my street. And I didn't like losing. I was really not a good loser, as I remember. I don't know if I've gotten to be a good loser, but I've learned to live with it a little bit better.
Well, that's part of perseverance. Did you have any passions as a kid?
The passions were, I was good at math. I liked math. I remember when I was just learning how to add, and I would write numbers all the way across. I'd take an 8.5, 11 sheet of paper, and I could fill the entire page with numbers. And then I would draw a line at the bottom, and I would add up all the numbers. It would be hundreds of numbers. And I'd give it to my dad when he'd get home at night, and I'd ask him, could you check my math? And I remember him going over it and finding mistakes. So I was very passionate about mathematics, and I knew that was probably going to be part of my future career. And when I thought about going to college, I first thought about physics because I loved the math around physics. But then decided that I probably could get a job faster if I was a chemical engineer. So I entered into chemical engineering when I was an undergraduate. But yeah,
to have a father
numbers,
who would
math,
do something like that for you, you must have had a very good support network.
Had a great dad, great mom. They pushed me. They never thought I had accomplished what I could accomplish. They always thought I could do better. And I learned from that you got to be careful when you push your kids a little too hard. And my wife is better at not pushing than I am. But I gained a lot from them. I gained a lot of strength from their insistence that if I got a 91 on my report card in English, I should be able to get a 92 next time. But they were supportive of it as well. I remember getting driven everywhere, as most moms and dads do. And my dad was my coach through all of my Little League days, and very supportive. And unfortunately, they broke up and split up when I went to college, and ended up having two separate sets of parents after that.
But you still had a good support network, which was part of, I think, your drive, part of your ability to move through difficult situations. Because I guess it gives you the confidence.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, to grow up today with a mother and a father who live in the same house, and mom didn't work, so she stayed home, and dad, who was an engineer at Carrier Air Conditioning, very stable. And I don't see that as much today. You see many more single parent families and children. My wife is a 5th grade teacher in a tough district in Binghamton, and probably less than half of her students out of 22 or 23 students have what I would call a supportive household.
Right.
Most of them go home to an empty house or brothers and sisters there. it is sad. I think that's probably one of the most difficult parts of our community and our lives these days is dealing with the less traditional family than we grew up with.
How do you deal with that as an administrator in Binghamton? Because I'm sure a lot of the students there have come from broken families.
Yeah, and I would think a little less so at Binghamton. You know, we have a very strong admissions program. We get about 36,000 applications for 2,600 freshman positions. We're very selective in terms of academic performance, and so you get a different mix through our process than you would from than you see in our neighborhoods in Binghamton. Some of our neighborhoods in Binghamton, but you do nowadays. The biggest concern we have is mental health. So many students come to college now having been regularly seeing a counselor, psychologist. Many of them being treated for depression, and maybe even taking some kind of a drug for their depression, and so we have to manage that with a relatively small budget for mental health counselors. We have about 14 or 15 full-time counselors in our mental health center, but the demand is off the charts,
Right.
and so that's probably our biggest concern now. And then that moves into their performance academically, their performance socially, student conduct problems, and it's not just Binghamton University. It's a problem that's widespread across the country right now, and we're all universities are trying to figure out how do we do this. I had somebody email me and say, boy, we need more counselors, and I just did the quick math. I love math. I said, well, if we were able to give every one of our undergraduates, just our undergraduates, one 1-hour counseling session a week, we would need 345 full-time counselors. 345 full-time counselors. And I would say that doesn't sound like it's an unreasonable ask to have 1 hour a week where you could just go and see a counselor, which many
Right.
of them would have had coming from home. Of course, when they get to college, they're out of network sometimes. It's more difficult to find a practitioner in upstate New York. Many times the students don't want to talk about it to their parents, and they don't want their friends to know that they need help, and so they tend to avoid pursuing that need. But it's big, and I haven't figured out a solution to it. I don't know if there's a solution to that problem, but at the same time, I shouldn't harp on that. I mean, we have great students here. They work so hard. They're dedicated to their studies, but also to the community and their volunteerism. They're unbelievably accomplished kids at Binghamton University, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard of Binghamton University, and maybe some of them have even sent their children there.
Yeah. So, as a matter of fact, I just watched the movie The Rewrite. And I wonder how many people learned about Binghamton University from that movie.
You know, several million people watched The Rewrite. When it came out, Mark Lawrence, who's our alum, who wrote it and directed it and produced it, gave us some of the statistics of the online watches. It was on Netflix. It was in movie theaters for a short run. And several million people saw Binghamton University through the lens of Hugh Grant and Melissa Tomei.
Nice.
It was awesome.
It's pretty cool. So I want to take you back to college. And I think we have a picture of you from college. I have to say I was quite jealous when I saw this picture. I saw this handsome young buck, the very attractive gal by him. He's in a football uniform. What is going on?
Yeah. Well, that is my wife there, Kathy. Kathy and I met at MIT. I was playing football. I think that year I was playing a running back position, and I think this is a picture where I just broken my hand hitting somebody, and my wife, who was not my wife at the time, was standing over me and administering some first aid. She was an certified athletic trainer that I met in the training room at MIT, and I never knew that picture was ever taken. But after I graduated, actually, when when we got married, the football coach sent it to Kathy and I, so that we had that picture. And you asked for a picture of me when I was younger, and I looked
Yes.
around. I said, I don't have any pictures when I was younger, because I don't think there was film when I was younger. There wasn't even cameras. But I found that one. That was from about 1980.
Yeah,
So it's a little while ago.
I was a complete study nerd in college. You would find me in the Glenn G. Bartle Library on weekends, spending my weekends in the library. For me, that was fun. So that picture to me is representative of somebody who obviously has been successful their whole career, not without struggles, I'm sure. So what do you, speaking of struggles and perseverance, what is bigger for you, passion or drive? Or is it both, or does one lead into the other?
It's drive. I mean, passion can come and go very quickly. You can be passionate about a project or about a cause, but the emotions that create passion are emotions that are kind of at the extreme. Either it's excitement or happiness or thrill, and those come and go. So you have to have drive in order to see your ideas become successful. And I believe that it's how you follow through. I can have a million ideas, but if I can't follow through on any of them, I'm not going to be very successful. Mm-hmm. If I have one or two really good ideas and I follow through on them, the chances are that you can be successful. So I really believe it's that follow through, the drive that's most important.
I think that passion and perseverance are kind of connected. The way I kind of look at it is, you are inspired by something, which is really infatuation, and passion grows over time. And then you need that perseverance in order to continue on your mission to arrive at success. That's just the way that I look at it.
Yeah, so, exactly. You're probably right. You need both.
There's this whole litany of things, and there's this book that I've read called Grit by Angela Duckworth, and she talks about passion and perseverance and how they're all kind of connected. Perseverance, obviously you have perseverance. Tell me how you get through a difficult situation. Describe to me how you get through a difficult situation, and if you can, give us like a story, an anecdote.
The most important part of getting through very difficult situations is having people around you that you can confide in, that you can have confidence in, that you can talk to. It's very difficult sometimes to explain how complicated a situation is to somebody, because you feel so wrapped up in it, and you think, they'll never understand what I'm going to say to them. But if you start to take the time to, and it's usually my wife or my very important vice presidents, where I know that they will take the time and let me get out the whole story, the 10 or 15 minutes it takes me to tell them what happened. And that once I've told them the story, they can help me unpack it and break it down, and to understand what you can do about something or what you can't do about something. And many times you're powerless. And I've got a lot of cases of that here, and certainly the ones that are great success stories are less interesting, because the best one that I had when I was here, there was a state senator, Tom Libas, passed away a couple of years ago, but he loved Binghamton University. He would do anything for Binghamton University. And there was budget time. It was my first year as president, and it was budget time in New York State, in Albany. And he called me up, and I swear it was Christmas Eve. Maybe I'm making that up, but it was right around Christmas Eve. And he said, Harvey, the governor needs me to help him, and he knows that means he has to help me. What is it that you need? And this was 2012, and the New York State budget was pretty good. And I said, Tom, I've been trying to, my big idea is I want to create a school of pharmaceutical sciences and pharmacy, start some basic research, and educate pharmacists for the future. And I need to build a building. And he said, how much is that building going to cost? And I said, $60 million. And he said, that's a 6 and a 0? And I said, yes, $60 million. He called me back in a couple of days, and he said, I've got it for you, Harvey. And I thought, oh my God, in one phone call, I just transformed Binghamton University into what I'm seeing now 7 years later. And to have that person that would understand exactly without a lot of words, for him to understand that. And then after that, me going around trying to explain to everybody what I had just committed us to. And we just opened the building last year. It's got 175 brand new students in it. It's got 25 faculty. We're building an R&D building next to it. Our nursing school is moving near there. We've bought 15 acres across the whole part of that part of the southern tier. What has unraveled from that first phone call has been remarkable. On the other side, a bad story. We had a student murder last year.
I read about that.
And the student was murdered in their residence hall. And I was home asleep, and it was by another student. I was home asleep, and it was maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning, Sunday night. And my chief of staff, actually my wife, woke me up and he said, "Harvey, there's somebody pounding on the door, flashing a flashlight through our window." And I immediately called the police, and police came, and it was my chief of staff trying to wake me up because they've been trying to get me on the phone and my cell phone had been turned off. And so I went to campus that night to sit in a conference room with a couple of vice presidents and our chief of police while the district attorney from Broome County investigated the murder. And I was not allowed to say anything. By about 4 o'clock in the morning, they had not arrested, but they had brought the suspect into custody, and they were questioning him. But they didn't have a weapon. They didn't have information enough to have a case. And if I had said anything, if I had made an announcement to the students, if I had tweeted something, I could jeopardize the entire case. But I had students out there who were fearing for their lives, that there was still some mad killer running across campus. But I knew that there wasn't. And I had to hold that information back until about 5 o'clock that afternoon, when finally he confessed. The student confessed, and we were able to build a case on him. He's been sentenced now 25 years to life for murder too. But that was the hardest night of my life, sitting there knowing that I knew something, knowing that I had thousands, tens of thousands of students and faculty and staff out there worried about their safety. I knew that they didn't have to worry, but I was holding the case higher than their peace of mind. It was a tough night. It was a really tough night, but I'm glad it's over. We caught the murderer, and he's in jail now for the rest of his life.
I'm sure that it was not an easy thing for you for more than one night. How do you deal with that internally, personally, and then handle yourself publicly and professionally? How do you compartmentalize all that?
You take it as a challenge. So it is about the 1 year anniversary of when that happened. And I had a staff meeting this morning, and I said, it's not going to happen this year. We're going to do things differently this year. And it's interesting. We found it's easy to find all of these many murders that occurred in the April timeframe. The Virginia Tech shooting was in April. And there's lots of reasons around why that person chose that time to do that. We had a shooting in Binghamton that killed several people, and it was in April. There's been some famous murders like Abraham Lincoln in April. And there's actually some theories behind that. This spring starts to come around, people are happier and joyful of it, but some people who aren't, who are angry and depressed and maybe having more serious afflictions, will act out their aggressions on those people who are happy. And so we're getting prepared for April right now. So I took it as a challenge. I'm not going to say that when I met the boy's mom and dad, who actually lived in Brazil and did not speak a lot of English last year, the boy who was killed, I vowed to them and to myself that his memory would go on, and we would make sure that we double our efforts to protect our students and to make them safe in the future. And that's what we're working on right now. The students are all on spring break, and When they come back, we've got a lot of opportunities for us to message properly to them, and to make sure that if they need some help, if they're struggling with depression, that they're getting in to see us and learning about how they can help cope with those problems.
It would be so easy to sweep this under the rug to make it go away, and I commend your efforts in confronting this in a public manner.
Thanks. That's why I think drive is important. The passion can come and go, but in order to stick to it, I got some pushback today from some of my vice presidents saying, there's probably not much we can do, or we're doing all that we can right now. And I said, well, then we're not doing enough. Let's figure out something else that we can do that we're not doing right now.
And I think that's a great thing that you're doing, is to push people not just to help a situation in the community, but also to push people personally to be better. And that's impressive as a coach.
Yep. Thanks.
So I wanted to go back to the Empire State Fund that you were talking about a few minutes ago. That's correct? That was the Empire State funding?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is really transforming Binghamton. I mean, the campus is already transformed, but now you're transforming downtown. I was there. I remember, Endicott Johnson had gone. IBM, within a few years after I got there, IBM was gone. The downtown became a ghost town. And here you are now transforming the entire Binghamton downtown and Johnson City. Do you have many more plans, and do you have a vision for the future for this?
Well, it's going to be more organic than visionary, because these things take a long time. You have to put one foot in front of the other in these development projects. Right now, we have enough money from the governor through the Upstate Revitalization Initiative, which is a program that is led by the Empire State Development Corporation, which you mentioned, that's brought about $170 million of capital for us to expand our footprint into Johnson City, which is where the Endicott Johnson Shoe Company was, with 20,000 employees just 50 years ago. And now they're all gone. Almost all the buildings are torn down. And what we're doing there is building a health sciences campus and a research park. We've been hiring faculty members who are outstanding researchers in several different disease areas, who are helping us develop diagnostics as well as therapeutics for those diseases, from muscular dystrophy to cancer to Lyme disease, opioid addiction. And so we've got a robust research program there. And I really do think that that's how we're going to replace the shoemakers. We're not making shoes anymore. There's not a lot of margin on making shoes. But if you can make a great pharmaceutical that can save lives or improve people's lives, you've got something that can turn a district around. And so I focused on that. That's probably been the thing I've spent most of my time on. We built an incubator, a high-tech incubator in downtown Binghamton. The pharmacy school, a research laboratory in Johnson City. We have a $11 million fund that we're just holding out there, trying to attract a company, probably a medium to large size pharmaceutical company who'd like to relocate and do manufacturing or R&D next to us. And the governor believes in this, and he and I have talked about this several times, and he thinks that the great universities will make great areas. Great companies, unfortunately, can just leave with one person's decision. When IBM left Endicott and left the Binghamton area, it was because Thomas Watson's son wanted to be closer to New York City. That was the reason why they decided to leave. And then 20,000, 25,000 jobs disappeared over the next decade or so. I don't want that to happen again. I don't want it to be one person's decision that can change our entire economy. I want to make sure it's smaller companies that are spread out across those. Startup companies are a big focus of our work as well. And then keeping the students here, keeping our students who graduate here in the community and letting them be entrepreneurs is great. And if you think about great cities, they are because they have great universities. You think of Seattle, University of Washington, or Ithaca, Cornell, the whole Cambridge area is because of MIT, Harvard, and all the other universities there, Boston University. Even one that I'm starting to get to know a little bit more because my daughter lives there is Northampton and Amherst, Massachusetts, where you've got University of Massachusetts and Smith College and Amherst College.
5
a
colleges.
very, very vibrant economy with very little manufacturing there at all. It's all around the educational institutions that are there.
Yeah.
So I think that we can change Binghamton and make it a great place because we're trying to focus on what universities bring to the communities.
Right. I have a couple more questions for you. I don't know which one to go with first. Harvey, you take on a lot, and you continue to take on more and bigger projects and more exposure, and the fishbowl gets bigger and bigger. Do you ever get concerned about failing and what that might mean?
Fail all the time. That's the thing that makes the job interesting. I had a project that this morning I was talking to it was a real estate project that we just about ready to close on. A big project, a big idea. I can't even tell you about it, how it was so important. And at 11 o'clock, I got a call from somebody and said, they sold it to somebody else.
Oh, no.
We're not in the running anymore. And I had been spending the last month on this project. And I said to myself, hey, you win some, you lose some. Don't get hung up in it.
Yeah.
Don't look backwards, look forwards. And I almost said to myself, oh, that's good. Now I have more time to work on something new. I don't have to worry about that project anymore.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to take failure and immediately pivot on that failure.
Yeah.
If you get sad about failure, you're going to spend a lot of time being sad. So you might as well look at failure as an opportunity to learn something and to pivot and move in a new direction as quickly as possible.
Well, first of all, you could use failure as a catalyst to propel yourself forward. That's number one. And there's also the learning from failure. And you learn from it and you can move forward. And here's something else I've learned as I get older. You can't look at any one failure as the big picture. It's just one failure. And then the next thing is, one more thing, is it's not cancer. And as long as it's not cancer, you're good. You know what I mean? To me, because health is the most important thing. And that's just the way I look at it.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I have a lecture that I give to students only on special request of the 13 times that I failed and what I learned from it. And it starts from my junior year in high school.
That's pretty cool.
And when I'm done, the students know me a lot better because I tell them things that I don't tell anybody usually, and they appreciate the fact that, wow, you failed a lot and you're still doing okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna ask you about one more thing. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Tell me about 2020 and how you're gonna do 20 by 2020 and how you're gonna accomplish that.
I had this vision of being 20,000 students by the year 2020. We were about 14,000 plus or minus students then. It was 2013. And I looked at 2020 and I drew a graph and I plotted it out. And I said, we can do this by 2020. We can get to 20,000 students by 2020. And it really sounded nice too. And I remember sitting with my marketing guy coming up for a title for the State of the University address that year. And I said, how about 20 by 2020? And he said, oh, yeah, 2020 is a long way away and 20,000 is a big number, but it sounds good. Let's go with it. And I'll tell you, Cliff, I get haunted by that all the time because now we're at about 17,800 students.
Yep.
We're not going to make 20,000 students by 2020. I would almost say that that's a failure that I'm learning from. But I also have to say, let's not give up. Maybe it's 20,000 students by 2020 something. Maybe it's 2021, 2022, but we have to move in that direction. And then I tell them why we have to move in that direction. And again, it's about how the economy around here needs us to grow. And I also tell them that Binghamton University is known for its great undergraduate education. It used to be called Harper College. It was a great place to go to get an undergraduate education. But we have to be more than that. We have to be a research active university. We have to have graduate programs, PhD programs. And when I said 20 by 2020, we were right around, we were probably 13,000 undergraduates. And I said, I want to be 14,000 undergraduates and 6,000 graduate students. And that would be 20,000. It would be a nice 30%, 70%. People got that. But the difficulty has been that the construction of the buildings that I'm working on has taken a little bit longer than we thought. The growth in graduate student populations tend to follow negative economies. And so the economy right now is fairly strong and students are graduating and not going on to graduate school. So I have a lot of excuses why I haven't gotten there. But I have not given up yet. I have not declared this a failure. It's still only 2019. And if you give me a couple years into the 2020s, we'll make it by then.
Well, I'll give you a couple of years.
Thanks.
So Harvey, I'm a young person. I'm in my early 20s. I've recently graduated college. I want to make it big somehow, some way with my career. Give me some tips and recommendations.
So many students think that they want to start their own business these days because they've seen it be successful in so many startups, especially the famous ones, the Facebook type things, the Amazons. But I tell students, look, don't do it yet. I want you to go out there. I want you to work for the biggest, most complicated company you possibly can go to, whether it's a KPMG or a General Motors or a General Electric or someplace that's big enough and it could be in failure mode, but go and work for them. Learn all the secrets about how great organizations work and how great people lead great organizations. And then don't have a lot of debt. Don't buy a house. Don't buy an expensive car. If you get married, don't have kids yet. And after 4 or 5 years, then give it a shot. Then take your idea out there. You'll probably have some non-compete clause against your existing employer. Then take that idea out. And you know what? Why don't you come back to Binghamton and do it? Because Binghamton is really inexpensive to live. We have great schools around here if you end up having children. You've got great workforce talent coming out of Binghamton University, and you could help us turn the economy around. So that's my advice to our students. Go work, get a lot of experience, then come back here and launch the next Facebook in Binghamton.
It's funny you say that because I did exactly that. I started my career after college in Binghamton, working for Pitney Bowes, selling office equipment, knocking on doors cold, and I did that for 5 years. I ultimately moved to Manhattan and did it, but that's how I started my career, and that gave me the knowledge and experience to go off on my own. So I have to tell you, I am living, breathing proof of what you're saying.
I'm gonna write that down and make sure I tell people that Cliff is definitely a living example of that suggestion.
It's very true.
It is. It works, and I've seen it work for a lot of people.
Yeah, I ran my own business for about 25 years until I started this new business. And I had 20 employees. I worked with some of the largest corporations in the world. But that would not have been possible without the cumulative experiences that I had starting from Binghamton through working for Pitney and moving on.
Yep.
So Harvey, I do really appreciate you being on with us tonight. I will let you know that I got the Binghamton Marketing Collective to allow you to come on remotely because I promised them that you would come to one of our events. How do you like that?
Well, we followed through. I know today we had a hard time connecting.
But we did it.
And we about 7 minutes late getting the program started. But as I said, drive, perseverance, get you to the finish line. We didn't give up. We knew we were going to get there somehow, and we did it tonight, Cliff. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for hosting our student or our alumni organization.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping that you do come down here to one of our events and maybe do a live with me here in maybe our studio or at an event.
I'm sure the technology would be a little easier to use if I was there too, but I'm glad we were able to make this one work, and I am in the city quite a bit. As you know, we have about 50,000 Binghamton alum that live in the Metro New York area, and I'm down there quite often visiting with them and talking to them and encouraging them to come back up and visit Binghamton. It's doing great.
Yeah, I have to say that's very impressive. That I've noticed that you've been to a lot of these events, and it's not even like you're waiting until you have to run for office, and you are very visible to the community, and I know that I really appreciate that.
Well, it is part of making the job fun too.
That's really cool. So we have an event coming up. What time is it? So it's 20 after 6 at 7 o'clock. We have, Justin, what kind of event do we have coming up tonight?
So we're kicking off at 7 p.m. Basically, we're talking through the new dynamic landscape of video advertising. So we have two views from the TV side. We have views from the digital marketing side. Should be a lot of cool information, a lot of hearing about the progression, and again, how people have had transformative beginnings at Binghamton University, which everyone's excited to hear as well.
Who are the two guests?
The two guests this evening are Alan Wolk. I believe he was, actually I don't want to take a shot at what class he was, and then we also have Erica Meyer as well. So Alan has an independent TV-centric business, and he also does some consulting work. Erica, who actually works here at the Simul Media offices, or will be starting next week.
Pretty cool.
Coincidentally, yes.
Well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to that. Please don't go away. The streaming is going to stay running. We're going to keep the stream on. You're just going to see people filing in, but you'll know that we're going to keep running. We're not going to disrupt the stream. And at 7 o'clock, we get started. We have a little conversation with Simul Media, and then a presentation by the two presenters that Justin told us about. Harvey, thank you again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here. And we will see you next week when we have on Laura Voyer, who has written a book called The Pet Sitter's Tale, and it's all about her business build of a dog walking business for celebrities in Los Angeles, California. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great week and enjoy the event later. And please stay tuned. It's coming on soon. Bye.